there, YouTube? I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Most Wanted from North Star Games. This is for 2 to 8 players, ages 10 plus, will take about 15 to 35 minutes to play, and in Most Wanted, you are in the Wild, Wild West, and you're going to try to be the best outlaw in the West, the most wanted outlaw in the West, by robbing trains, robbing banks, and having duels, doing all sorts of stuff like that in this simple party-esque game. It's light, it's simple, it's got a Midwest theme, it goes all the way up to 8 players, which I love, but do I love the game? Let's open it up, and I'll tell you what I think. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Most Wanted. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet, 11 pages, double-sided, full color, full of plenty of pictures, illustrations, examples. Very well done, big thumbs up on the rule booklet right there. Now, oddly enough, they also have a travel guide here, which is going to teach you how to understand all the other different cards that come in the game, because there's other different cards you'll be using, and also will allow you different ways to set up the game. Think like Dominion, where it'd be like, if you want to play where there's a lot of money, or a lot of trashing, or a lot of curses, or attacking, set it up like this. So there's different ways you can set up the game with different cards. So that's what's in here. It feels like it should have been in the regular rule booklet, just made it slightly larger rule booklet, but hey, they chose not to, so it is what it is. So in Most Wanted, what you're going to be doing is you're going to try to take your little figure and make them the most wanted character in the Wild Wild West by getting all the way up to the top there. You're going to do that by doing action cards, which will be over here. And right now we have 6 of them set up. This is the base game setup, but as you saw when I showed you the travel guide, there's lots of different ways you'll be able to set up the game. So let's go over the components. Let's get into the gameplay. So first, component-wise, we got money over here. This is money that you're going to need to pay bail, because when you unsuccessfully rob trains or stagecoaches or get into duels or things like that, you will have to pay bail, or you will have to go down spaces on the board. So having money, always a good thing. Next, we're going to have our action cards over here, and we're going to go over the 6 different actions a little bit later, but what you need to know right now is that these are double-sided, and the ones on the bottom will actually flip over and get to be a little bit more rewarding once you've gone through these cards in the deck, once you go through a whole stack of those cards. I'll go over those a little bit later. Next, you're going to have your little player reference card here, which, if you're not familiar with poker, will tell you how the hand rankings work. High card, 2 of a kind, 2 pair, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, and then also how a little bit how 6s beat aces. I wish they would have full-fledged this a little bit more and given you like an example or two, but I know they didn't want to mess up the artwork because, oh, look, it's artwork, it's pretty artwork. Yes, we know the game's gorgeous. Get over it. Make the player reference card better. Yeah, this is honestly pretty useless, especially if you know how to play poker. But hey, it's great artwork, and it shows you actually which character you are, which is pretty important. So, continuing onward, you got your little standees right here, which you'll be trying to move up and down the board. Well, not down the board, but trying to move them up the board. You will start off the board, which means if you have to pay bail when you're off the board, you don't actually have to pay anything, which is nice. And then we have our deck of cards over here, which will be 6 through ace. There's no particular rhyme or reason. I think there's like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 aces. It's not like your typical deck is what I'm trying to say right there. And it's 6s through aces, and a pair of aces gets beat by a pair of 6. It has like a little wraparound thing that it does too, which is kind of neat. Last, we have extra cards that you'll be able to mix and match in. They are all, once again, double-sided as well, so some nice variability there. But let's show you how you're going to play Most Wanted. So when you start the game, you're going to start with 5 cards. That's a pretty decent hand. And on your turn, you're going to take 1 action. You're just going to go clockwise around the table taking actions, 1 action at a time. And that's the entire game until someone gets up to here. So let's talk about those said actions. So first, we have the bottom row, the Pony Express, the Stagecoach, and the Train. This is going to let you go up 2 steps, 3 steps, and 4 steps. The prison symbol right there means that you have to pay as much bail as where you are. So if you're down here, you have to pay 1 money bag for bail. If you're right here, you have to pay 2, and if you're right here, you have to pay 3. If you cannot pay that, you have to go down that number of spaces. So let's say I'm right here, and I have 2 money bags. I'm good. I just pay those 2 money bags and I don't go down. If I only have 1 money bag, then I go down 1 space and lose 1 money bag. And you guessed it, if I had no money, I'd have to go down 2 spaces. So having money, very good in this game. These ones are very interesting because you're either going to rob the Pony Express, where you'll be using your best 2-card hand, your best 3-card hand, or your best 4-card hand. And how it is you say, all right, I am robbing the train. And I might ride the train right now. So I'd put out these 4 cards right here, and anyone can join you in a train robbery. So at this point, everyone at the table who wanted to join, you go around in a clockwise fashion, can join in the train robbery and potentially go up 4 spaces even though it's not their turn. So let's just randomly draw 4 cards. Let's say 2 other people wanted to join me. So let's see. I have 2 pair, 10s and kings. That's a pretty solid hand. I'm happy with that. This person has a pair of aces. This person has 2 queens. So I would have successfully won this. All these cards are going to be discarded now. I would get to go up 4 spaces, which would be great. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then everyone else who lost the competition would now have to pay their bail, which, as we mentioned, was whatever number they are next to. If you were not on the board, then guess what? You don't have to pay bail. So good for you. You always just want to kind of compete. Now, the other big thing about this is everyone gets to draw back up to 5 cards who is actively involved in the robbery now. So that can be a good way, especially when you're down here, to get better cards in your hand and to kind of cycle your cards. So that's the Pony Express, the Stagecoach, and the Train, and they will change ever so slightly by just adding 1 extra point as you progress through the game. Because once you run through this deck, which as you can see, I mean, we just drew 12 cards on 1 turn there, you're going to flip over 1 of these cards at a time. The other 3 actions you'll be using in the base game is first the Church, which is going to let you discard cards and then draw back up to 7. So you're going to have a larger hand, which means you'll be more likely to make a better hand. Honest Labor, which lets you discard cards the same color and get $2 per card. So if you have a whole bunch of reds or a whole bunch of greens or something, you can get a lot of money. So that way you can be a little bit more gutsy with when you want to get into trains and stagecoaches and Pony Express robberies. Then last but not least, we have the dual space. And the dual space is a really interesting one because unlike the other spaces where everyone could get involved, you actually choose 1 player to duel. You say, all right, I'm going to duel this person over here, and it will be a 1 or 2 card duel. And they have no choice in the matter. They have to compete in the duel. Over here is how many spaces you get. So for instance, if the person that you're competing with is down here all the way at the bottom, you would get 0 steps. So you don't want to try and duel people down at the bottom. However, if it's someone all the way at the top, then you could potentially gain 3 steps, which is really good. And once again, the loser has to pay their bail, whatever that may be. So that's what you're pretty much going to do. Now, sometimes you will get into ties. If you get into ties, then you'll have shootouts where you're going to put down 1 card, and the person who has the highest card then wins the game. The other big important rule is don't forget that aces get beat by 6s, which is kind of interesting. I wish they did cover that a little bit more here on the player aid card because there's some kind of technical rules with that, and it only works in certain scenarios. But let's show you some of the other cards that you do not see right now. So we have the Bank with 5 cards. You're going to be able to go up 6 spaces, which is huge. Pay Respects, 2+ cards. Straight Challenge, winner draws to 9 cards, so you're just trying to make the longest straight you can, and you get to draw to 9 cards, which is great, and no penalty, so that's a really good one to do. Grave Robbing, choose 1 card from the discard pile per 2 cards discarded, so that can be a lot. Shantytown, Worst Hand Challenge is going to give you 3 spaces, but you have to use your entire hand. And there we go. That's that, but slightly weaker. Hold Up, winner takes the cards. You take any other actions. That one's a really interesting one. General Store, pay $1, flip 3 cards, buy cards for $1 each. You take any other action. So you can do this if you have a lot of money right before you're about to take another action. As you can see, so there's a good deal of variability with the cards in this game. Anywho, you'll continue to go until somebody gets to the top, at which point they will be the winner of Most Wanted. And that, in a nutshell, is how the game is played. Alrighty then, Most Wanted from North Star Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. 2 to 8 players is a fantastic player count, but honestly, I'm going to recommend this game as a 5 to 8 player game. Maybe 4 players. While I didn't think it was a bad game at 2 and 3 players, I thought it was okay. And it was a good way to learn the game, which is good, but I feel like this game really is best when you have, say, 4 to 8 players, because it just makes those robberies a lot more interesting with more people getting involved in the hand, and it just leads for really cool moments where everyone's like, oh, this is a big moment right here, and I like that aspect. So I definitely feel like this is a party-esque style game. Now, that being said, that's another con that I have with this game. It's very light, it's very simple, straightforward, 1 action on your turn. You know, especially if you're playing the generic game, the base game, the beginner's game, you're only going to have 6 actions to choose from, and being brutally honest, 4 of those actions are very similar. It's like, do you want to play 2 cards down? Do you want to play 3 cards down? Do you want to play 4 cards down? Or do you want to rob somebody else and have a duel and play 1 or 2 cards down? All those actions feel very samey. So the game, in my personal opinion, gets better once you've gotten past the first couple games of it and you start adding in the different cards, the different special cards. But that's another comment I have with this game, is that I wish there were more of those special cards. Now, that being said, I believe there's 6 additional special cards, and some of them are double-sided, so it's kind of like having, 9 or 10 of those extra cards. But still, I would like to have seen more, and I hope in the future, if they release expansions, which I really hope they do release expansions, because, spoiler, I really like the game, they do release more of those cards. Component-wise, the box insert is a hot pile of garbage, which is why I completely got rid of it. It's your typical Fantasy Flight-looking box insert, which is terrible. The player aid cards. I did not like the player aid cards, and they annoy me. And the more I think about them, the more they annoy me. Because there's some symbology here. It's like, all right, they got this number right here, and they got the prison guy right here, and this one says 0 to 3, and this poker hand says 0 plus, and there's a lot of different symbology on some of the cards. There's probably 4, 5, 6 things that you're going to want to know. So putting those on the player reference card is a great thing to do, and they chose not to put any of that on the player reference card, and instead showcase the pretty artwork, which really annoys me, because you have this big player reference card, which is nice. I'll even show it to you. I'll pull you up one right now. So here you go. Here's your player reference card. On the front, you got a picture of yourself. It's got pretty artwork. And okay, that's good. So now I know which character I am. Not that I was going to forget, but still, I understand this is a necessary evil. Over here, we have a list of the poker hands, which I understand. If you do not know poker, then this is good. That being said, I wish they would maybe have included some pictures there to show you what all these different things mean, like 2 pair, high card, 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, because if you don't know what 2 pair is, because you don't ever play poker, 2 pair isn't going to mean much to you. And down at the bottom, it shows you how the 6s and aces work, so very briefly. And instead, I wish they would have included more information about how the 6s and aces worked, and which scenarios the aces get beat by the 6s and which scenarios they don't get beat by the 6s. And they would have just included slightly more information, because there's plenty of room on the back, but instead they chose to just put, more fancy artwork. I get it. The artwork's good. Put functional stuff back here, though, please. That's a comment I have with the game. I wish they would have included more of that. It's not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, because most of the symbology, once you know what you're doing and once you played a couple actions, is pretty straightforward. But when you're first starting the game, it would have been nice if it was there. Any other cons that I have with the game? No. Moving on to the pros. I really like Most Wanted. I think it's a great game, and I can recommend this game wholeheartedly. I'm super excited for expansions. And where do I begin? So first and foremost, let's talk about the artwork. The artwork's great. It looks pretty. It looks like it was pulled straight out of a Disney movie. So there you go. Smooch on the artwork a little bit. It looks great. It has good table appeal. Component-wise, I like the components. The board's perfectly functional. I like the little standees and how they're going up the steps and they go down the steps. Component-wise, I like all the components except for the ones that I mentioned in the cons. Now, actual gameplay-wise, I like the streamlined nature of this game. It's a very simple game. What are you going to do on your turn? You're going to pick one of the actions, and then you're going to do one of the actions, and maybe you're going to try and rob something, or maybe you're going to draw cards, or discard cards, or get money, or do something like that, and then it moves on. It's a very brisk game. I love the fact that you're actively engaged in the game at all times, because you're always going to have the potential to be dueled or to jump into a Pony Express robbery or a train robbery or something like that, even when it's not your turn. And I love games that keep you engaged when it's not your turn, and this one does that very well. I also think that's a huge important thing in party games to do, and since this definitely feels like the kind of game you can play at a party game sort of night with your Resistance, your Werewolf, your Cards Against Humanity, your Say Anything, games like that, I feel like this definitely fits that bill because you are actively engaged even when it's not your turn. I like the variety of special abilities in the game. I feel really opens up once you start playing with those different special abilities and adding more of those. I'm a big fan of those special ability cards, and I can't wait to see more of them. One more con that I have with the game, and it's not really a con, I understand that it's probably going to come out in the future, is that I wish the characters were different. Because right now they're different because, this guy's got red hair, and this is an old lady, and this is a dude with a piece of dynamite or something like that. But I wish they actually would have been asymmetrical. That's another thing. Like, use the back of the player aid card to make the characters asymmetrical. That would have been great as well. So I really, those player aid cards, they really do tick me off. But anywho, continuing on with the pros, I like this as a party-style game. I played it with adults. We had a lot of fun with it. I played it on my game night. We had a lot of fun with it. That being said, everyone I've played with has thought it was good or better, which is really good. Most of the time, there's people like, not my particular cup of tea, but everybody's like, yeah. And the big thing that I heard from a lot of people who said this isn't really my style of game, but I didn't hate it, was that it does not outstay its welcome. It's a pretty brisk game most of the time, and I do like how the game sort of ramps up once you start going through the different piles of cards and you flip over, so now you're going to be gaining more points. I feel like that was a really smart idea on their part. I like the fact that you don't lose anything by losing shootouts or Pony Express or train things when you're all the way down at the bottom. So that kind of means that if you're down at the bottom, it's a little bit easier to catch up because you have nothing to lose. So you can be like, yeah, train robbery, why not? Maybe I'll win this. I like the fact that once you played this game enough, you start to see that there's like this bluffing aspect where it's like, I think I could sneak through with some really crummy cards here and no one's going to challenge me because they don't want to pay the bail. And you can start looking around the table and saying, wow, everybody's really low on cash. I really enjoyed this game. Most Wanted from North Star Games. I hope this one gets some buzz, gets some exposure, because I think it is a great family game. Kids in my class absolutely loved it. I think it's a great party game, and I think it's a good game night game if you play games on the lighter side. So that is Most Wanted from North Star Games. If it looks like it might be your cup of tea, be sure to check this one out. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know if you were a wild, wild west bad dude or bad lady, what would be your weapon of choice? For me personally, I would like to use, I want to use a carved out coconut that looks like a monkey, and then my thing would be that I bash people in the head with it, and then I pretend to put blood in there, but really it'd be just tomato juice. So I'd be like this really bad Wild West outlaw, and I would just have like a pack of V8 with me at all times. It'd be like, oh yeah, I'm drinking the blood. Don't mess with me. I'm a big bad guy. Below in the comments below, what would you have? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.